Senator Bell.
Thank you so much. Madam Presiding Officer, I rise in opposition to the nomination of Senator Rosario for President of the Senate. I understand that in casting my ballot against this nomination, I will be doing something that is typically not done. So I am asking my colleagues to understand, even if they will not join me, why this is a vote I must take. During my campaign, I pledged not to vote for Senator Rosario for President of the Senate. Over and over, my constituents asked me not to support him. At the debate, I was asked about it, and I wasn't going to say something differently on camera than I had said off camera. So I said that I would not vote for Senator Rosario. A number of his supporters have asked me to break this pledge. And I hope they can understand that that's not something I'm going to do. When I make a promise to my constituents, I'm going to keep it. I'm also asking my colleagues to understand how strong my policy differences with Senator Rosario are. On issue after issue, Senator Rosario does not support many of the core principles of the Democratic Party, instead taking policy positions typically associated with the Republican Party nationally. He opposes repealing the tax cuts for the rich. He has taken thousands of dollars from the NRA. He's endorsed by Right to Life and is not pro-choice. He even voted against marriage equality, something that...
Point of order.
Senator Lombardi.
The presiding officer has asked for counter nominations, not a dissertation on why this nominee isn't the proper person for it. So as such, I would state that this dialogue is out of order at this point.
Senator Bell is allowed to debate the nominations so long as the nominations are open.
Thank you so much, Madam Presiding Officer. Very much appreciate that. He even voted against marriage equality, something that still stings members of the LGBTQ community today, including myself as a bisexual man. His policy positions on these core issues are Republican policy positions. They are wildly out of the political mainstream in a state as democratic as Rhode Island. They do not reflect the views of Rhode Islanders, and I do not believe that they are reflective of the views held by most members of our chamber. While many of us may differ from the Democratic Party's core values on a few issues, most of us are either pro-choice or support repealing the tax cuts for the rich. Many of us both. This chamber voted overwhelmingly to support marriage equality, and the subsequent years have only made the Senate more supportive of LGBTQ rights. Senator Rosario and I do have some areas of agreement. We agree on the need to protect social services and workers' rights. I am hoping that we will be able to find some agreement on economic development and general process reforms. I want to credit him with working to restore the upper chamber to its traditional role as the senior partner to the lower chamber. And I was very pleased with both his selections of committee chairs and his willingness to empower those chairs to hold a real voice in setting public policy. However, the vast majority of our policy views are in strong disagreement. I have heard the arguments commonly advanced against my position on this vote, and I have considered them seriously. They have come, in many cases, from people I respect and deeply admire. Perhaps the most common counter-argument I have heard is that if I do not vote for Senator Rosario, he will exact retribution upon me. My bills will not pass, and I will fail to get anything done. He will strip my district of legislative grants, and I will get a bad parking space, but fortunately, I ride a bicycle. In my view, however, this argument presents a paradox. For another argument often advanced is the way that Senator Rosario runs the Senate is so open and fair that it justifies voting for him despite real policy differences. Both arguments cannot be true. Indeed, if retribution from Senator Rosario would be so severe, in my opinion, it would present a more powerful reason to vote against him. But for his part, Senator Rosario has vehemently denied on multiple occasions that he will exact retribution on those who vote against him. I thank him for that, and I take him at his word. Another argument, sometimes advanced, is that his personal character is so excellent that it compels a vote for him even if you disagree strongly with his policy views. To this, I say two things. On the one hand, I think politics should be about policy, that it should, whenever possible, avoid being personal. On the other hand, there has been a fairly large number of incidents over the past 4 decades. Honoring Senator Rosario's request, I will not delineate the details on the floor, but I ask my colleagues to understand why this issue makes it yet more difficult for me to vote for him. Finally, there is the unspoken argument, one I think many of my colleagues find most convincing, that one simply does not vote no. It isn't done. As Senator Rosario put it at our new senator orientation, here in the Senate, we read off the same sheet of music. But during his 1992 primary, Senator Rosario championed his own willingness to stand up to leadership. He proudly told the Providence Journal that he had, quote, opposed the leadership on a number of issues. During much of the 1990s, the conservative Democratic faction formed a dissident caucus under the Honorable Senator Montalbano. They used very aggressive resistance tactics, and they used those tactics to successfully seize control of the Senate. During the 1980s, conservative Democrats were even more aggressive. Although they could not command a majority of the Democratic caucus, they were able to effectively run the Senate by allying themselves with the Republicans. While dissent is not very common now, we don't have to go very far back in history to find it. And often, it was the same conservatives currently calling dissent unthinkable who were using...
Senator Bell, if you could keep your remarks to the nomination, please.
All right, I will do that. Thank you for that. Who were using extremely aggressive tactics of dissent not so long ago. So, you know, out of deference to the chair and the presiding officer, whom I deeply respect, I will not be delineating the rationale for casting my vote via ballot. I would be happy to explain it in person to anyone who has questions, but out of deference to the chair, I will not be delineating that. I have great respect for her, and I thank her for her long service and her friendship, and I will be following her wishes. So to close, I want to stress that I understand that what I'm doing today is something that typically just isn't done. I understand that my vote today breaks a norm, a new norm, but a powerful one all the same. I know that most of my colleagues will not make the same decision as I have, but I am asking them to understand. I'm asking them to understand why I must cast my ballot against Senator Rosario today. Thank you.